When you type the word Advent into Ravelry, you get 29 pages of results. That's 1,369 patterns to go through. But don't worry, I went through every single one of them so that you don't have to. Here in New York City, it has just gotten very cold outside. It's in the 30s right now, so I've got a mug of hot chocolate, and I am so ready to go through these patterns with you. So a couple things to note just before I start to share all of these patterns. So this list is just my 10 favorite patterns. There are hundreds of patterns out there, and a pattern doesn't have to be labeled as Advent for it to work for a Yarny Advent calendar. I have linked down below all the patterns that I'm going to talk about today, plus some honorable mentions, plus every single pattern that I thought was like good, approved, put the stamp of approval on. I have put together in a Ravelry bundle, which means you can go through all 150 something patterns that are there by clicking the link down below. Number 2, all of these patterns had to meet my criteria, which I defined as this. They had to have either a 12 or 24 like skein orientation. So that means that they are made for Advent knitting or crochet. You're going to see knit and crochet patterns here. Some of the patterns do require an additional like main color, skein, or sometimes two, just depending on the pattern. They must be Advent makeable, which means you have to be able to start them the day you open your first package. It can't be like, oh, you know, you need to like work a little bit with like day 1 and then like 20 days later you're working with it again and then you need like multiple colors on day 1. No, they have to be Advent makeable from the start. They also must use 20 grams or less per color, and all of these patterns are fingering weight. 20 grams is pretty much the standard for a lot of Advent calendars, although you will see some patterns in the bundle that I have linked that only need 10 grams or less. The last thing is that they must look good, knit or crochet in multiple colors. You're going to hear me say for each of these patterns who they are good for, and in that I will talk about whether it's going to be good for any type of Advent that has multiple colors or more of a cohesive Advent that may be a fade or a gradient or just colors that are meant to go together in one project. I'm sharing these patterns in no particular order. There is not a number 1 best pattern or a number 10 not the best pattern. It's going to totally depend on the kind of Advent you have, the kind of making that you're looking for, and I'm hoping to share a variety of different things today. Okay, one more thing. I haven't made any of these patterns. I just want you to know that I'm recommending them based off of my research and what the designer provided for in the Ravelry description of the pattern. So before you set out making something, I would totally recommend doing your own research, looking through everything, and then purchasing the pattern ahead of December 1st, reading through it, and just making sure it's something that you're going to enjoy. All right, let's dive into the first pattern. First up, we have the Moro cowl by Sylvia Watts Cherry. So this is a beautiful knitted colorwork pattern. It's a long infinity scarf that's like knitted in a tube, and you carry one main color throughout while changing the background color with your minis. I think this one is really fun. If you're a colorwork knitter, you're going to love this. And I'm thinking that if you have more of a solid or kind of a semi-solid tonal kind of an Advent, it's going to work really well for you. But you're going to need to choose a main color that really contrasts with everything else. So probably something either quite dark or quite light, so that if you don't know what's coming up in your Advent, you can mostly guarantee that it will be contrasting enough. You will need 23 10-gram minis plus 1 100-gram of your main color. The pattern retails for $4.64 Great British pounds, which on this day was about $5.78 in US dollars, and it is for the colorwork knitter who has a cohesive Advent. Next up, we have the Milkweed Leaf Scarf by Brianna K Designs. This is such a beautiful crocheted shawl. It is made out of hexagon, so it's going to be one of those fun patterns where you can kind of have one completed thing each day, which is really, really nice for Advent. The interesting thing about this one is that even though it's a fingering weight pattern, you're going to use this technique that's called 3 to 1. I've seen it on Brioche Adventure's Instagram a lot, though I've never tried it myself, but basically you kind of almost like chain the fingering weight yarn with your fingers before you crochet it, so that you're creating a 3-strand thickness rather than having to divide all of your yarn into 3 separate balls to hold it with 3 strands together. So if that kind of intimidates you, definitely check out Brioche's Instagram. Also, the pattern is available for free on her blog, so you can go look through everything there first. I think there was even a video tutorial, and there was definitely a crochet chart there. It was inspired by butterflies. Please take a look at the pattern. It is so beautiful, and I think it will look great in a multicolored Advent. For this pattern, you will need 24 20-gram minis. The price is $6 for the PDF, or you can get it for free in the blog format and includes a chart and video tutorial. This pattern is for the crocheter that loves lace with any type of Advent. That brings us to our first blanket of the day. This one is called I Quilt 2 by A Little Nitty Designs. So this is a really interesting blanket. It is kind of like modular looking, although I wouldn't say it's like a modular knit, because you do have to work in pieces and then seam everything together. So if that is not your jam, then you may not want to go for a pattern quite like this, but I just couldn't pass it up in the top 10 because it is so beautiful and so pretty and really does look like a quilt. For this pattern, you're going to need 24 20-gram minis plus 1 100-gram for the optional border. The price is $4 for the pattern, so you can't beat that. And this is for any knitter who loves something that is repetitive, doesn't mind seaming, and can be used with any Advent. Our only hat on this top 10 list is Full of Minnies Hat by Barbara Naluko. So I hesitated to bring a hat onto the top 10 list because I really like a pattern that's going to use up most of my 20-gram mini skein. But this hat uses more than most of the other hats that I've seen, because you're actually doing quite a bit of knitting and then doing this kind of like fold and tuck and I'm assuming picking up stitches sort of technique that is really interesting and creates a super cool hat. There's tons of projects underneath this pattern, so you can go through and look through everything and see how all of the other projects turned out, but it creates a really cool and fun effect. For this hat, you're going to need 24 5-gram minis. The price is €5 or about $5.41 in US dollars. And this pattern is for the adventurous knitter who wants to use up small bits with any type of Advent. Number 5 is My Favorite Adventure by Dragon Horde Designs. So this is a colorwork raglan sweater. It's 1x1 colorwork, and it is different than the one that I made last year. If you remember, I made a colorwork sweater that wasn't intended specifically for Advent knitting. This one is designed specifically for Advent knitting. The designer, Tristan, made sure that every single size only needs 20 grams of your mini skein. You are going to need a main color as well to go along with it, which is what I think makes it a very cohesive piece. It's so beautiful, and this sweater is kind of staying in my favorites for maybe future potential use. For this sweater, you're going to need 25 20-gram minis plus 2 or more 100-gram skeins, and the sweater goes from bust sizes 31 to 67. It is $8 US, and it's for the colorwork knitter with a tonal Advent.
Hi there, Natalie from the past here. We're going to take a quick break to thank FlexiSpot for sponsoring today's video.
You may have seen our super cool office setup from our last video. Kent and I both have FlexiSpot standing desks that we use every single day of the week. You'll find me in standing mode 50% of the time, but I love that I can switch things up all throughout the day. It's Black Friday at FlexiSpot, and you can get up to 50% off. Be the first 3 to complete checkout at a selected time, and you'll get your order for free. Then, November 26th through the 28th, you can save $100 off the FlexiSpot EG8 glass top desk. Kent uses his EG8 for work and gaming. It has a sleek glass top, roomy sliding drawer, 3 USB ports, and 4 programmable desk height settings. Check out the FlexiSpot website linked in the description box below, and make sure to catch those Black Friday sales this November. All right, continuing on with our list. Next up is another crochet pattern. This one is called Advent Fringe by Chiwe Rank. And this is a triangular crochet shawl that has fringe like throughout it. I don't know how it's done, but it is so cool looking. And I think it's something that makes it really unique and very beautiful. And it only has 3 projects on Ravelry for some reason. So crocheters, please go give it some love. It is such a cool pattern. For this shawl, you will need 12 20-gram minis plus 1 100-gram main color. It is $6 US, and it's for the crocheter with a gradient or fade advent. I really wanted to bring in some different patterns that you may not have seen. So this next one is for all of you brioche knitters. This one is called Brioche Adventure by Jonathan Tallow. And this is a rectangular brioche shawl. It's knit on the bias, so it's kind of like a parallelogram. I don't know the like technical geometric shape, but it is knit on the bias. It is 1 width, but the length is customizable. So I think it only calls for like 16 different colors, but you could of course incorporate all of your mini skeins and make it a longer shawl. One other thing to note on this pattern, I know I said in the beginning that all of these are advent knittable, meaning you can start day 1 with your first color. I think that this may be one of those that is an exception because brioche knitting in this case is requiring 2 colors. So I think you might have to maybe cast on and then really get started on day 2 once you have 2 colors. But I didn't actually purchase and get into the pattern, so definitely take a look at that first before you start out. For this shawl, you will need 16 plus 20-gram minis. You can use a variety of different amounts. It is 55 Swedish krona, or about $5.43. And it is for the brioche knitter with a cohesive advent set. We've got another blanket here, and it is the Radvant Throw by Amba O'Brien. So Amba O'Brien has so many advent knitting patterns. A ton of hers are going to be in that bundle that you see linked down below, but just go click on her name and like go to her patterns, and you're going to find so many different options, from shawls to blankets to sweaters. There are so many things, and it was hard to pick like one thing from her and not have her a million times on this list, but this one was hands down my favorite. I think I'm a little bit biased towards blankets, and especially blankets knit in pieces. There's something about that like satisfaction of finishing one thing in that one color and like being done for the day. Although it does look like quite a bit of knitting, so I'm not sure how realistic a daily keeping up with this blanket would be. It would be quite a lot of knitting, so just go into it with the mindset that it might be one of those patterns that extends beyond your advent days. So the blocks are knit center out, so you cannot be afraid of small circumferences in the round, whether you like to use double pointed needles or maybe magic loop. And then this is a combination knit and crochet project because the seaming is all done with a crochet hook. I'm sure there are other ways to do it, but the designer does include a photo tutorial on how to easily join all of the blocks with the crochet join. For this blanket, you will need 24 20-gram minis plus 1 100-gram main color. It is $7 US, and it's perfect for the multi-craftual maker who isn't in a rush to get everything completed with any type of advent. Number 9, I have a blanket for all of you crocheters. This is the Crochet Advent Baby Blanket by Lucienne Crochet. So this is one of those sort of classic crochet blankets where you're gonna see the chevron. But I think because of the colors that are chosen, plus that main color that's kind of sandwiched between the colors throughout, and then it just being in fingering weight, it's a much more modern version of a classic crochet blanket. And don't get like baby blanket let that turn you off from it. I think this is the perfect project for any person because you could use it as an adult as a lap blanket. And it does look like something that would be very achievable to keep up with doing daily stripes throughout all of Advent season. For this blanket, you will need 24 20-gram minis plus one 100-gram main color. It is $4.49 Australian dollars or about $3.15 US dollars. It's for the crocheter of any level looking for a comfort project with any type of Advent. That brings us to number 10, our last pattern. And I know I said that these weren't in any specific order, but I may just have saved the coolest one for last. This is The Quest by Melinda Misor. And this is a rectangular shawl, which is like, okay, you know, that's cool. I've seen lots of rectangular shawls, kind of those parallelogram kind of thing. It is a knitted shawl, and each section has a different stitch pattern, which is very fun, and we haven't seen that yet in this top 10. But what makes it really different is that this is a choose your own adventure shawl. So basically, you take a die or a dice. I don't know. I never know if I'm saying the right thing. I think dice is singular, right? I think you need two. So you take 2 die and you roll them, and then you use the pattern to tell you what section to do next. From what I understand, all of the sections work together. They can be knit in any order. So you could either use that die method and let the adventure be chosen kind of randomly for you, or you could even go through and look at the different sections that you really like and piece together a shawl that is going to be so much fun to knit. One more thing, this comes in 2 sizes, either a skinnier scarf size or a wider wrap size. For this shawl, you will need 24 20-gram minis. The pattern is $7, and it is perfect for the lace knitter who likes something new every day with any type of Advent. Before I share with you my Advent plans, I want to give some honorable mentions to a few more patterns. Remember, I have so many patterns in a bundle down below, and in that bundle, if you're on just like the first page, there's 4 pages by the way, I think around 150 patterns, I put in a note for every single one on how much yarn it takes. So that's a good way to just start there, start scrolling through and seeing if one pattern or one other pattern in particular fits the size Advent that you have. But if you want to get a little more specific, you can click the Advance button at the top, and that way you can do a lot of sorting on the side. You can sort through like knit or crochet, free or paid. You can even type into the top if you want something specific, like if you want a shawl or a blanket. All of these patterns have been vetted. I went through every single one and made sure that it is going to be great and fun Advent making for this season. Okay, in 10 seconds or less, here are 7 more patterns that I love. The Festive Cheer Cowl by Yarnia Designs is a fun, tube, simple stockinette with a little bit of something fun in between each day. The Cozy Comfort Throw by Homespun House, simple garter stitch blanket with an I-cord edge. You can double up your yarn or maybe even hold days together. Scattering Petals Cowl by Dana Rae Makes is another one where you can double up your fingering weight yarn, and DK knitting is sure to get done even faster. The Fairbanks Advent Shawl by Toni Lipsy. It's a crochet shawl, and you can use up to 11 colors plus your main color. Quadrophenia by KF Jones is a modular blanket, so if you liked the iQuilt too but don't want to seam, this one will be perfect for you. The Advent Cowl Wallop 2019 by Leoneki Bosman. I know you've seen this one before, so I didn't include it in my top 10, but it's such great, simple knitting and really showcases those minis. The last one here is totally different from all the other ones and definitely does not fit into our parameters, but it was too fun not to include. This is the Amigurumi Advent 2022 by Ilaria Kaleri, who is also known as Irene Strange, I think. But this is so fun. You basically make this crocheted cactus, and then each day you get a different like little stuffy amigurumi thing to make that goes along with the cactus. It is too cute, and I was looking at last year's, and I think it was like a log, or maybe this was a couple of years ago. It was like a log, and then it was like all these little woodland creatures that go all around it. So crocheters, this one is for you. It is not fingering weight. It does not follow any of the other things, but it is too adorable not to include in this Advent wrap up. My theme this year for the patterns that I'm going to be working on is just to be kind and realistic to myself. So as I'm planning for my Advent making this year, I am thinking about how can I love future Natalie and not put too much on my plate and feel like, you know, having that comfort knitting and crochet, but also feel like a little bit of a challenge, but also have just like fun in the Advent season. So with that in mind, I have selected a main pattern that's going to be my biggest focus throughout December. And then I have a secondary pattern that's going to be like, you know, I would love to keep up with it daily, but I'm not going to be upset with myself if I don't keep up with it daily. And I want you to hold me to it because I tend to get that way and I just want it to all be like perfect and all wrapped in a nice little bow, and that's just not realistic to do all that every single day. So with that being said, I am going to have, I believe, I don't know yet because they haven't all arrived, so I'm not 100% sure, but in the plans, I have 2 full Advents, so like 24-day Advents, and I have 1 12-day Advent. So for the first full 24-day Advent, and I'll be sharing that with you in my Vlogmas, which will start on December 1st. I am going to be knitting the Beachcomber Flares by the Little Wolf Knits. So basically, I'm gonna make a crazy stripy pair of pants that I will be so cozy in and get to wear out around the house, and I'm so excited for them. I did make the Twisted Tea shorts, and I'm kind of using this to help me plan out how I will knit and spread out those 24 skeins. It is not an Advent ready pattern, meaning it's not made to be done with an Advent, but I'll have plenty of yarn to make it. So what I've calculated so far is that there are about 29 inches of leg, plus I need to figure out how much is in like the waistband to basically the crotch of the shorts, of the pants rather. My shorts are a little bit long in that area, so I know how much I need to do. And then once I have a total number of inches, like length, I will just divide it by 24, and that's how I will know how many inches I need to do each day and how many inches of each color I need to do in the pattern. And other than that, I'm just hoping that it works. If it needs to be a little skinnier at the top where I need more yarn because it's all the way around the body and then a little less on the legs, then I will figure it out from there. But that's going to be my main focus project and what I'm going to use one of my Advents for. Now, my secondary project is going to be this. I have already started it like 5 years ago, and this is an adaptation of Granny Stripes by Lucy of Attic 24. I'm calling this my Scrappy Granny Stripes. This project will be down below with all my notes and how many I chained to start. This is a crochet project. So I'm going to attempt to make 1 stripe per day, which is 2 rows. And I think it takes me a few hours. I might even time myself this week doing a whole stripe and just kind of see. So I'll like know, you know, is this going to be realistic to fit in today after I've done my pants? And we'll see if that works. I was a little hesitant of putting in like a full Advent into the blanket, which is full of all kinds of scraps from over the years because I don't want it to be too cohesive all in one spot, but I'm pretty sure that I put an Advent in like down here a few years ago and it's all from one Advent and I think it still looks good. So as long as the colors of the Advent aren't all too similar, I think that this will be a nice addition and I may even be able to finish this one day. So I know I said I'm trying to be very realistic, but I do have this 12-day Advent that starts on December 14th and there's a pattern that I am dying to make. It is the Juniper Cowl by Toni Lipsey, and technically it's in 8 colors, but I think it will be very easy to adapt it to 12. In fact, I just saw a friend that has made one. She was wearing it today and I just love how the pattern looks. And we even spread hers out and I kind of counted like, okay, I think I need to do like 5 puff stitch rows per color, and that will give me the length that you have. So I think I might be doing that if everything is going well, or maybe if I need a break from my secondary blanket project and I want to switch it up to something else, I'll have that cowl and be able to work on it too. But again, I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself this Advent season. I really want to make the pants and be all cozy and wear them, and everything else is just a bonus. If you've made it this far, I have a special giveaway of some knitted Advent patterns from Crystal T Knits, and you're also going to see some of her other patterns in the Advent bundle that's linked below. Her two new patterns are a shawl. It is called the Gingerbread House Advent Shawl and has a different stitch pattern every day that looks like bricks on a gingerbread house, and the Desert Rose socks that can be bought as a single pattern or in a bundle. So if you want to enter to win one of those patterns, if you will leave a comment down below that includes your favorite holiday dessert. I'm going to assume that many different holidays have holiday desserts, but just in case yours doesn't, you can leave like a holiday food or even a holiday tradition, but something holiday, and I will be selecting a few random people to win some patterns from Crystal T Knits. Let's make the comments a resource as well, so drop all of your favorite Advent patterns or share what you're making this year, and then you can scroll down through that and see lots of different ideas. Don't forget, I also have that Ravelry Advent bundle linked down below. I spent a lot of time going through and curating all of those patterns so that it's really easy for you to find something great for your Advent knitting. Then come and join me for Sockmas, which starts on November 25th, and Vlogmas, which starts on December 1st, where I'll be dropping a new vlog every day here on the Nitty Natty channel. And if you want a little bit more, the holiday bonus package is for you. It's 5 live events, and signups close on November 27th. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found a wonderful Advent pattern idea for this year, and I will see you in just a few days for Vlogmas 2022.